In this video, I'm going to explain how we can start DSLR scanning with stuff that's already lying around the house. Hey friends, I'm Nobby Whitney and welcome back to the channel. In the film scanning world, there are two main camps, the flatbed scanners and the DSLR scanners. Now when I say DSLR scan, obviously I mean mirrorless, and in fact any digital camera, but I think DSLR scanning has been the name given to the process. There are also the dedicated film scanners just for 35mm or just for medium format, or the massive big tens of thousands of dollar scanners. But if you're on the budget end of the scale, you're looking at flatbed scanners and DSLR scanners. A lot of people think that to get into DSLR scanning, you have to invest quite a lot of initial money to get your setup set up. But that's not the case, and that's what I want to explain to you today. Number one, your light source. A lot of people will suggest a tracing table or similar light box. And they can set you back $100 or more if you're getting something of quality. And if you're not getting something of quality, then you'll get quite uneven lighting, maybe vignetting around the edges, and even streaks across your final scans. Now, there's also companies like Valois, Negative Supply, and Intrepid, who are doing really amazing light boxes, but for a few $100. And obviously, if you're watching this video, then that's not the kind of budget that you are aiming for. However, do you have a phone at home or a tablet? Then you've got a light source. On the Negative Lab forums, there's a long discussion about what are the best light sources for scanning your film. And apart from the high-end light tables, any modern phone or tablet came up at the very top. Great accuracy, great brightness, great edge-to-edge illumination. I use an iPad. Basically, you set a white image, full screen, turn the brightness right up, make sure you've got any blue filters or nighttime modes turned off, so you've got a pure white screen, and then that is going to be your light source. So if you've already got one of them at home, your current investment is $0 extra. Now that we've got our light source, we need something to hold our negatives in place. Now this is where I splurged a little bit because I use Lomography's digitalizers. Now, full disclosure, Lomography actually sent me the 110 one as a gift, but the medium format and 35mm I've been using for about 6 years now. Bought them out of my own pocket, and I love them. Also, I travel a lot for work, and they're so thin I can just slip them in any suitcase, any backpack, and I can set up a DSLR scanning situation in a hotel room very easily. If, however, you want to keep your budget still at $0, then you can use something like a shoebox, which is a very common situation, where you put the shoebox over your light source and cut a hole in the top the size of your negative, and then that will backlight your film, which you can then take a photo of. At this point, you may have run into a small problem. If we put our negatives directly onto a tablet or phone, then our scan is actually going to pick up the pixels from the screen below it. So for that, we need to raise our negatives above the light source. And that way, simply by depth of field, the pixels are going to be completely diffused due to being out of focus, and they won't come up in your final image. So to raise the negatives, you can basically use anything around your home that you have two of and that are the same height. So it could be old film canisters, film boxes, or like rolls of tape, video game cartridges, literally anything. I use Japan Camera Hunter's film cases because, again, I travel a lot and these are always with me anyway in my bag, so I never have to find something else. Wherever I am in the world, I can just use these to raise my negatives above my light source. So far we've got light source, negative holder, and something to lift your negatives above your light source. So next we need to take pictures of those negatives. And for that, you need a macro lens. Do you have a macro lens at home? If so, then perfect. You can skip straight to the next chapter. If you don't have a macro lens at home, you can use extension tubes. Now, a lot of people will advise against extension tubes because there's a loss of sharpness possibly vignetting, maybe even some aberration. And yeah, maybe it's true, but again, we're trying to keep our budget way down, so we do what we can with what we can. In my case, I use the Plastic Fantastic Fisher Price Look Mum My First Bokeh 50mm 1.8 Canon cheap lens, and these $25 extension tubes from, these are from Polaroid actually, but there are a bunch of no-name brands on the internet. They don't want anything that has any glass in it or even anything that has any electronics in it. They are literally just holes. Most of them come in a set of 3 different lengths, and that can be really useful, which I'll explain a little bit later on. So try to get the 3-length package deal, which you can find anywhere. I should probably add a little bit of proof here, because people are going to ask, with a crappy 50mm 1.8 plastic lens and some no-name extension tubes, can you really get good quality results? The answer is yes, you can, and here are some sample shots which I scanned myself with this exact setup. So we've now got a macro lens, or an adapted macro lens, as well as everything else. We just need a tripod, and I'm just going to guess that you have a tripod at home. The best option is to put your tripod in upside down mode, so you can have the camera facing straight down at your negatives. If your tripod doesn't have that option, there's other methods where you can lean your tripod against a table and then have it down at a 45-degree angle. It also works. I've actually used that setup before with a different tripod that I had in the past. Now we need to actually start taking pictures of our negatives. First off, we want to get as much of our negative filling the frame of our digital camera as possible. And this is where the different extension tubes actually help a lot. When I'm shooting medium format, I use the 13mm extension tube on the 50mm lens, and that lets me move the camera close enough to focus on one entire frame. And then when shooting 35mm, I use the 21mm extension tube for the same effect. When I've scanned 110, I found that putting both of them together gives me the right distance to fill my whole frame with a 110 frame. So thanks for 3-in-1 sets. Using this method and having the whole frame filled with your negative, you're going to get a really high resolution file. If your camera is, for example, 24 megapixels, then after a little bit of cropping in, you'll probably get a good 20 or at least 18 megapixel file of your negative, which is huge. Second important thing to remember, manual focus. You want to set your camera's lens to manual focus and make sure you focus on the grain if possible. If you can't quite focus on the grain for whatever reason, focus on the film border where it goes from black to the image, which is quite a defined line. Or you've got a stray hair on the image, then focus on that and then just remove it in Photoshop. Next, for the settings, you want to set it at the camera's lowest native ISO. In most cases this is 100, it could be a bit less depending on your camera, and that's going to reduce digital noise as much as possible. For aperture, most people suggest f8 as it is the sharpest possible aperture for most lenses. Personally, I use f11, and that's just because using the macro extension tubes, there is a chance that it's a bit softer on the edges, and also there's a chance that your negatives are a bit curly for whatever reason. And I feel like f11 just gives you a bit more chance that everything's going to be in focus without going too far into the diffraction regions of f16 or smaller. And then for the shutter speed, you want to check the histogram and push it to the right. So that means overexpose as much as possible to get as much information as possible up to where it starts clipping the highlights. If it clips the highlights, you've gone a bit too far, so just come back like one click of your wheel until your histogram is filling up most of the space, and that's going to get you the most information you can get out of your negative, which will help you in the conversion stages to get a nice result. And we're already there at the conversion stage. Now there are a few plugins and apps that do this sort of thing for you. Negative Lab Pro is one of the most popular ones, but that's $100. And we're here to save money. So let's try something that's completely free. And that is an app you can get on your phone called Snapseed. Snapseed is a photo retouching and general processing app from Google. It's incredibly powerful, and I have no idea why it's still free. Thanks, Google. You've got your classics like your exposure, your sharpness and all that, but it also allows curves adjustment, which is what we're going to use, and content aware fill. You can expand your crop. It's got hundreds of thousands of filter possibilities and raw processing as well, so it's definitely a great app to just have on your phone anyway. What we're going to do is we're going to send our raw files from our camera to our phone, either by using a dongle, AirDrop, files, Bluetooth, whatever you can, get that file onto your phone. Now load up your photo into the app. If it's a black and white photo, you just want to go straight to curves adjustment, bring the white point down to black and the black point up to white, and you've got yourself an inverted negative, a positive. Now you can do a little bit of a curves adjustment here just to check the exposure, and then from there you can go to the regular adjustments and change your contrast and your highlights and all that, and make it look however you want. Now for a color image, it's a little bit more complicated because first off, the film border is actually going to affect our curves. So loading up a color photo, your first thing is to go to crop and just crop out the film border. Then we go to curves adjustment and start the same as before, bring your whites down and your blacks up, and you'll get something resembling a photo. But now we want to go into the different color channels. So first off, just bring each edge of the curve to where the information actually starts and finishes, because everything outside of that range is useless to us. Then go to the second channel, do the same thing, and then as you finish off with the third channel, you'll start to notice that the photo is looking pretty good. And just keep sliding that last one until it looks the most natural. Then you've got a basic negative conversion. You can keep playing with the tone curves to make it look a bit more precise if you want, or you can just go out of here into the regular settings like your contrast and your brightness and use that to fine-tune how you want the photo to look. Now, if you want your film borders back, Snapseed has a history function, so just click on this little button at the top here, then go down to crop, click on the edit icon, and then re-expand to show your film borders, after which you can reapply the other adjustments that you made afterwards, and you'll get to a final result. And there you have it. You have scanned and converted a negative into a shareable, printable, high-res positive for very little money. If you like this video and you thought it was helpful, please let me know down below, or just leave a little thumbs up to show your appreciation. And if you've got any friends who would like to get into DSLR scanning but don't really have the budget to invest, well, maybe share this video with them and they'll learn something too. Otherwise, that's it. Thanks very much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.